Hello, friends. It is the end of the year 2022, which means the inevitable video games I played this year video. And I want to do this a little differently. Instead of the new games that I played, because I actually talked a lot about those games when I beat them on this channel, I kind of want to talk about games I went back and played this year. Kind of games in my backlog, mostly. I guess that is the definition of a backlog. I was going to say mostly games that I've been meaning to play, but haven't gotten a chance to, but I finally did play this year. And it's been interesting, and there's some games that I've had some weird experiences with, or surprising experiences with, I guess is a good word for it. And there, I don't know, I was looking through them, and I think there was more interesting games that were on my backlog than there were new games. I guess to get it out of the way, I'll just list, I have a bunch of, I've listed both of them, so I'll list the new games that I played. And I'll just give a let's do that, one sentence review. Ready? Pokemon Legends Arceus, like the best Pokemon game since Black and White. Elden Ring, it's Elden Ring. The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, good sequel, not as good as the first one. I have a video on that too. Stray, probably my game of the year just because of how unique of an experience it was. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, pretty good. Kind of disappointing though. Spark the Electric Jester 3. Super surprising. Did not expect fans to make probably the best Sonic game there's ever, 3D Sonic game there's ever been. So yeah. And then Pokemon again. I just made a video about that game, but you know, pretty good, equally bad. That's it. Okay, now let's talk about games that I played that were a little older, or you know, something that I wanted to go back to and play. So, very beginning of the year. Oh yeah, so I must just preface this a little bit. 2022 was weird, different for me because I quit my full-time job and started doing freelance art full-time, which gave myself more free time, but also less free time in a way, because it felt like I needed to manage my time a little bit better. It felt like I couldn't just spend my free time playing video games. It felt like I needed to balance that with other work and, you know, other things. But I did get a fair shake of video games this year. Not as many as I always, like, I guess I used to. Back in the, you know, it's funny when you, like, become an adult, you think, and it's like, man, how did I play all those games back in, like, high school? Like, I used to play so many games a year, and now I'm, like, I'm playing maybe 10. Once a month, probably. A video game a month, that sounds about right. But yeah, back in January, right before I quit my printing job, I made myself a little project there where I made a box art and manual for a game called Bulk Slash for the Sega Saturn, because an English version had come out, like a fan translation, and they actually made a manual and cover art and back art and everything. So I printed it out. I had an extra Saturn case for some reason, so I put it in that, and I actually have like a full version of Bulk Slash. But the really unique thing about this fan translation is a big part of Bulk Slash is the voice acting. So they actually did a dub for it, a fan dub for Bulk Slash.
What now? You're right near the target. To the right. Holy moly!
And I had never really heard of Bulk Slash before I played it. It seemed, I like my weird Japanese-only Saturn games. I have a strong affinity for that stuff. And I was so surprised by this game. This game is so good. It was probably one of my favorite games I played this year, just because of how surprising it was. It is a mecha 3D mecha game on Saturn, classic, you know, tank control kind of game. But it's kind of got a structure, I want to say similar to Star Fox 64, but not exactly. The only reason I say that is because it's very linear, it's very arcadey, and it has a big emphasis on voice acting. So it's just, you do an objective every mission, and you have to do it in a time limit, and you can transform on the ground, or you can transform in the air and shoot stuff in the air, and you run around and destroy robots and whatever. The mix-up is that you have a companion that will give you directions on where to go, because it's a little disorienting on figuring out where to go. So a girl will be like, to the left, to the right, like, you know, in front of you, like behind you, whatever. And there's a bunch of girls that you can find in the game, and you can recruit as your little helper partner thing, and it kind of has this weird, I don't say weird, it's very charming in my opinion, this kind of dating sim angle. Like, you can pick one and then you get different endings depending on who you picked, kind of different, like, you know, romance endings depending on who you picked, and if you like, and throughout the game you can have one and then you can swap it out with another girl, and if you like do that too much, the ending changes to be kind of like a, oh, like why did you do that kind of thing. And it's cute and fun, and it's like kind of a weirdly, it works well for the game it is. I just didn't expect that, and it was short and sweet. It only takes about maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours to beat, but I've beaten it like 3 or 4 times now since I, first, I don't know, illegally pirated it. And it's fun. It's so fun. And it's probably one of my favorite Saturn games now. I just did not even know it existed before that, but I played that in the very beginning of the year. And I was just very satisfied with it. It's a cool game. I recommend checking it out if you can. I think Saturn emulation's pretty good now, so definitely check it out. It's worth a shot. It's pretty easy to put down if you're not enjoying it or you're disoriented or something. But if you like this kind of old arcade style, sort of old 3D Saturn style games, it's a good one. It's probably one of my favorites. Okay, so in like springtime, I got like really into mid-2000s Sonic stuff for some reason. I was like, I guess because I was reading the comics and it kind of made me like reminisce about some of the mid-2000s era Sonic stuff. So I kind of wanted to give some of it a fair shake. And I did play, I didn't list them on here, but I did play Sonic Heroes. I played through that game. I played through Shadow the Hedgehog. I did not play through Sonic Unleashed, but I wanted to. But Shadow and Sonic Heroes are interesting games. I could probably make an entire video about them and my feelings towards them. I have a very strong distaste for Sonic Heroes. Ever since I was a kid, I've really not liked that game. I was a big fan of the Sonic Adventure games, but Sonic Heroes just never did it for me. I was very disappointed when I got that game as a kid. So it's always kind of had this bad taste in my mouth. And I gave it a fair shake, kind of ignoring my, what do you call it? My biases for playing it. And it was okay. It was still pretty rough. The level design is the roughest part about that game. I still stand by that. It just doesn't always feel like it's working fully or like it's being put together well. And I know the game was rushed, but it was funny. I played through a few of the stories. I played through Sonic's and Team Rose's, and then I don't think I beat it, but I started Team Dark's, and Team Dark's was the most fun I think I had with the game. Which is weird because I remember thinking, oh, it's probably just more combat, and the combat's one of my least favorite parts about the game, but I was enjoying it. It felt like the balance was better with Team Dark. I don't know. I was thoroughly enjoying that for the most part. I mean, like, I guess it's not the right word. I liked it. And then Shadow the Hedgehog is the most mixed bag game ever. At least Sonic Heroes, I can say, like, is mostly not enjoyable for me. But I was enjoying some of Shadow. It was, like, pretty fun. But then it would just go to a crawl out of nowhere. It was so disappointing because there were these sections that felt really good and felt like I was like, dang, like Sonic Team's kind of nailing this. And then there was episodes. There were stages that just sucked, like really, really sucked. And it was weird. It was a weird mix, and it sucks that you have somewhat of a choice, but you don't know what levels you're going to. So in the, choosing your own ending story kind of thing, it's kind of frustrating. There's never, even the levels that suck, it's not like one path is easier than another. They just all suck because that level sucks. But the main game I want to talk about in terms of that mid-Sonic era is I played Sonic Advance 3, which is a random game in some ways, but it was a game that I had never really beaten, but I love Sonic Advance 1 and 2. I love Sonic Advance 1, but 2 is pretty good, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But I never really gave 3 a chance, a full shot, and I played it, and I beat it, and I 100%ed it. Well, 100%ed it. I got all the Chaos Emeralds, which I never do. Like, I really don't do that in Sonic games very often, but I did it in this one for some reason. And first of all, the game's really good. I never knew it was this good. It's probably my second. I still really like Advance 1, but it's better than Advance 2 for sure. It's pretty good. It's just got like really good level design, and the character swapping mechanic, where swapping the character team up mechanic, I guess it's called, is really, really, really clever and kind of an awesome idea for that game, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. It was really cool. But the 100% stuff, the Chaos Emerald stuff, horrible. Just absolutely horrible. I don't understand. I don't know what happened. All I remember, I mean, like, I did it with save states, but I remember thinking, when I was using the save states, I remember thinking, how the actual fuck is anyone supposed to do this with the actual cartridge? Like, this would be hell. Like, actual hell. I just remember you had to get a key, and if you lost, you had to go get the key again or something. It was ridiculous. I could not believe how cryptic it was. But overall, I was really surprised. I kind of just spent like a night playing it, and I was just kind of having a really good time. Yeah, I don't know. Sonic Advance 3, just kind of a surprise game that I didn't think I really would enjoy or that I was missing out on. But when I played it, I was like, wow, this is great. Like, I gotta go back and play some more of these like weird mid-2000s games that I never really gave a fair shot to. And speaking of, I played Mega Man 0, 3, and 4 also. And Mega Man 0 is a series that I hold a lot of praise to. I love Mega Man 0, but I haven't ever really beaten 3 or 4. I know I started 4 quite a few times. I never even touched 3 before, and I never really knew which ones were like the best ones or not. 3 is the best one by a long shot. I had no idea how good Mega Man 03 was. That game is so cool. It's like perfectly designed. If it's like the perfect difficulty, and the ending is extremely good. It's just so good. And then 04 is pretty dang good too. I really enjoyed those games. I had played 0, 1, and 2, and then I owned 4 like physically, but I guess I never gave it a shot, or never gave it enough of a shot. But holy moly, I'm glad I finally played these games, and now I have like a full opinion on the 0 series, because wow, Mega Man 03, wow, that game is so good. I'm so happy I finally played it. Again, another game where it's like, it's been like a thing. Like, if somebody asked me like, have you played 03, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't think so, but like, I probably know. Like, I like 0 games. It's same with like Sonic. A similar thing to Sonic Advance 3. But I am really glad I played it. It was just really cool. If you haven't played Mega Man 0, the 0 collection is how I played it on the Switch. And it was a great way to play these games. It was just really nice simulation and has a lot of nice convenient features. 03 is probably my most comfortable difficulty too. 04, I don't know if it's harder. It's hard to say. It's like, it's more frustrating in certain areas. But Mega Man 03 is like the perfect difficulty, where it's tough. It's really tough, but it gives you a lot of resources and like a lot of options to make it not easier, but like improve your skills in the game, I guess. It's cool. It's worth playing. It's worth playing. Mega Man 03. I'm sure anyone who's played Mega Man 03 is like, oh yeah, that's like the best one. Like, I'm surprised you hadn't played that. And it's like, how was I missing out? But on the same topic of GBA games, another Game Boy Advance game I played was a game I've been meaning to play for so long, and I finally played it because I didn't realize that there was a decent English version, or English, ROM hack, because it's a Japanese-only game. I played Tomato Adventures, which might seem a little random by the footage or just by anything, but this game is made by Alpha Dream, which are the people that made Mario and Luigi, the Mario and Luigi series, which, for anyone who doesn't know, that is one of my favorite game series of all time. I'm a huge Mario RPG nut, but the Mario and Luigi series is super underrated. And Superstar Saga, in my opinion, is, well, I guess underrated might not be the right word, because people love those games, but I feel like they're not talked about the same way the Paper Mario games are. But Superstar Saga is so good. That game is excellent. And this was the game they made before Superstar Saga. And in a lot of ways, is like the stepping stones towards Superstar Saga. And it was really, really cool to play it. Unfortunately, I didn't beat it because I was playing this on an emulator on my PS Vita, actually. So I wanted to play it handheld. And I had like RetroArch on my Vita or whatever. So I was playing it on there, and it didn't really run that well, or it ran well, but like it would crash sometimes, and I don't know if that's the patched ROM or something, but I literally didn't end up beating it because I ended up having to save in between every fight, and it got pretty frustrating because I would just like, there was just a chance it would crash, especially in the area I was in. But I think I got pretty close to the end. I think I was only like an area away from beating it. It's kind of split up into a bunch of different zones, and it was great. It was so much fun, and the way the action command based combat, like I'm saying quote unquote action command, it's different. It's kind of like mini games you do instead of like normal moves. It was pretty fun, and the way you had to get good at everything, because it would like, you can only use so many, was rewarding and cool. And it was just a pretty damn cool RPG. Super unique. I mean, it's like wacky, quirky, I don't know, Japanese studio type of game, like something like, you know, on the same page as like I don't want to say Katamari. I don't know, that era, you know, that mid-2000s kind of just like weird Japanese IP like vibes. It has that sort of vibe, but it's so unique in what it does, and it's so unique on its story and everything. It's not like super compelling. It's very silly forward. It's like stupid and silly, but it's really fun. And the English patch is great, and the guy who does it is super passionate about that game. Highly recommend you try it if you get a chance. There's also a Game Boy Color version that was like leaked during that Giga Leak thing, which is crazy. Apparently Nintendo was like, remake the game on the Game Boy Color, and didn't even bother translating it for America. Like, God, stupid greedy Nintendo is so rude. Like, remake the game, but we're only gonna give it like a limited audience. Like, die. Stupid. But very good. I'm so glad I played it. It just really opened my eyes to the progression that it took to Superstar Saga, and it's super charming. It's just super charming game. It's got really cool music too. And again, segue, perfect segue, right? Also Game Boy Advance, also RPG. I played, well, I'll preface this a little bit. Last year, I played Final Fantasy VII, which I had never played before. It was pretty much my first full Final Fantasy game. And I really liked it because I wanted to play it before I played the remake. And I was like playing it, and I got to the point where the remake would have gotten to. And I was like, I'm just going to wait to beat this game. I'm going to play the remake, and then I'll beat it. And I did, and I like Final Fantasy VII's remake. It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of issues, but it's pretty cool. And then I played the old one. I played through the old one after that, and oh my god, that game is so good. That game holds up so well, and I was really happy. It was probably one of my favorite games I played last year. But I've always wanted to play Final Fantasy VI because Final Fantasy VI is like the epitome of Final Fantasy in my brain. You know, it's like the one people talk about. I've started it so many times. I own it physically on Super Nintendo, and I've never played a lot of it. I don't know why. I've always like just gotten super. And by the way, I know people are gonna be like, "Wow, you bought that game and didn't spend a lot." I got that game for $5 at a yard sale, 2 minutes from my house once. It was a crazy find. Maybe if I make a video about my favorite like retro game finds, I'll talk about that. But it was a really cool find. But yeah, neither here nor there. Point is, I played the GBA version on my Vita, like I did with Tomato Adventure, and it was awesome. It was such a great experience, and I just beat it a few weeks ago, and it took me a little bit to beat it. I remember I probably started it like in the middle of the year, and I only beat it like recently. You know, I'm pretty slow when it comes to video games. I balance a lot of things too, like balance a lot of different hobbies, so it always takes me a while. But I did beat it, and it was really satisfying. And it's just a really good game. Like, it just holds up super well. I didn't expect that. I mean, I kind of expected that, but, you know, I expected it to kind of be a grind, but I think I like it more than Final Fantasy VII. I think it's just, like, better organized. And the characters are super charming. They just have, like, such a good vibe to them, and especially for the time, it's way more impressive of a game. Like, Final Fantasy VII was impressive, but for some reason, seeing, like, the pedestal, or I'm trying to think of the word to use, the heights that the 2D JRPG got to, I think Final Fantasy VI is like the height it got to. Maybe Chrono Trigger might be like a little step higher, but it is such a like pillar in that genre. And it's great. It's so good. And I don't know if people think it's overrated or anything, but it held up really well. Like, for me, it held up really well. As somebody who doesn't really have a lot of experience with Final Fantasy and doesn't have a lot of experience with JRPGs in general, it really blew my mind in a lot of ways, which is awesome. I mean, I felt like I was a kid in, 1994 playing this game for the first time and being like, so impressed by it. And it's funny because right now it's gotten me to play other RPGs too. Like, I beat that game. I want to play Final Fantasy IX. That is like the next one I wanted to play based on the aesthetics and what I've heard about it. And it's like development history and everything. I'm like, oh, I really want to play it. And I've been playing it, and it's really cool. I think I got to disc 2, so I'm a little bit in. And I kind of like stopped playing it for a bit because it's a little bit of a pain to set up because I'm trying to play it on like a CRT, and it's like a whole thing. Trust me. I bought like equipment to play this game on my CRT. It's ridiculous. But instead I'm playing Chrono Trigger now, and I'm going to try to beat Chrono Trigger because I've had it on DS for like years and years and years since I think I bought it at GameStop for like $10 or something, and now it's worth a ton of money. But anyway, I want to play it. I just have never played Chrono Trigger, and it's always been something I am interested in. I've started it, and remember this. I've started this game a few times. I do feel it kind of has a weird opening. It's like, it's not as gradual as some of the other Final Fantasy games. It feels like it just kind of throws you in, and the combat takes a little getting used to. It's like simultaneously faster and slower than Final Fantasy. I don't know how they did it. It's like almost an action RPG, but like the cooldown meter, what is it called, the ATP or whatever, it just feels like a little slow, and I don't know, but I'm getting into it. I'll probably be I'm going to a convention, and we're driving, and it's a long drive, so I'm probably going to play it in the car, and I'm going to play it that weekend and stuff. So I'm excited, though. I'm gonna just sink my teeth into that game when it happens. So all of that is now segueing into the big one I want to talk about. I know you still got a little bit more to this video. I apologize. I do appreciate if anyone's listening to me ramble about this stuff. But the big one I played was one Final Fantasy game that I really wanted to get into, was Final Fantasy XIV. And this game has a lot of history with me. So I downloaded this game in... I probably made my account in like 2016, 2017. Because it looked like something I might enjoy. The concept of an MMO is so enticing to me. It's like, exploring a world with people, being able to do these quests and raids with your friends, just having the sense of community and being engrossed in this world and making your own character, and almost like borderline role-playing. Well, obviously it's a role-playing game, but like, borderline role-playing as this character you are is like so cool to me. And like being into that community and like, existing in this virtual world is something that I hold so much value in. It's like something that I dreamed of as a kid, and I always wished I could be into, but the gameplay of MMOs just kills it for me, unfortunately. They're so grindy and so slow, and raids are just like kind of mindless dungeons in a way, or mindless boss fights. So it's never really hooked me. And I tried to get into it many times. When I first got the game, I was playing like a DP or a tank class, a warrior class. I think it's a tank. And it was okay. I wasn't super into it, and I took a long break. And at one point, I think my friend bought me a month, and I was like, I'm gonna make a new character. I'm gonna restart. And I played as a white mage, and it was way more fun. I was way more into it, and I got a decent far distance into Realm Reborn, and which, by the way, if you don't know, I'm just gonna quickly explain this so when I talk about it, it makes sense. If you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV, expansions are basically story arcs in the game that, are coming out periodically since the game's first launched. The first expansion, the base game, is called Realm Reborn. It was a reboot of the original Final Fantasy XIV, which was a garbage piece of shit. And then the first expansion, first additional expansion is Heavensward. And then the next one is Stormblood, the next one is Shadowbringers, and the last one that just came out last year is Endwalker. So just for reference of when I'm talking about these. So I played Realm Reborn. I got decently far into Realm Reborn, but it never was really hooking me. The characters weren't that interesting, and it is kind of a slog. And I played it before, I guess they kind of like streamlined it. So I was doing a lot of side quests, and it was just kind of felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere. It was like a little bit of a grind for the first few weeks, or first few months I tried the game, because I would pay for a month, get into it kind of, and then just sort of drop it because it's like a lot of time and effort, and I was working, and it was hard with art and everything. I just didn't have enough time to devote to it. And then when I quit my job at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm gonna buy a month of it, try to get back into it as my life kind of, a nice little balancing thing as I try to figure this stuff out for my new job and my new lifestyle, I guess. And it was nice. I was playing it, and I got pretty far. I got farther than I usually did. I got through Realm Reborn finally, and got through the post quest of Realm Reborn. And I'm not gonna lie, I was skipping a lot of cutscenes in Realm Reborn and just wasn't that interested in the story. But by the end of the post Realm Reborn quests, which is like what leads up to Heavensward, I got pretty invested. I was definitely, there were some story beats that I was like, oh whoa, this is like getting intense. But it was a slog. Those post Realm Reborn quests are really rough. And then I got into Heavensward, and Heavensward I was very, very invested in. But I won't lie, I think this similar thing happened where I was like, I don't know if I want to devote the time to this right now. So I dropped it for a bit, And then a few months later, probably like August, September, me and one of my friends were talking, and she was like, we should buy a month of Final Fantasy XIV. I was like, we should, so we could, just because we're kind of in the same spot, and so we could, like, you know, get through the story together. And it was just like, then I started playing through Heavensward in full, and I beat Heavensward, and it blew my mind, and I was like, oh, this is the game story that everyone is hyping up. Like, and I got really invested, and I have had the subscription since, and I am currently on Endwalker, and it's pretty intense. I'm like not super far into Endwalker. I think I'm doing like level like 84 quests, so without spoiling anything, you can probably deduce where that is. I just met bunny people, I'll say that much. Or are they mice or bunny? I can't really even tell. But yeah, it's pretty interesting so far. But I will say, the best experience, if I had to rank my favorite video game experience I had this year, it was Shadowbringers. Shadowbringers blew my mind. That was such a good expansion and one of the best video game stories I've experienced in a long time. Like, the moments in that game that hit like a truck. It is so cool. God, I almost wish I could go into more detail about it, but I don't want to spoil anything, and I'm not going to be showing footage for this probably. But oh my god, it sucks. It really does suck, though, because Final Fantasy XIV in my brain is such a weird spot in terms of, like, as a critiquing piece of media, because, like, it is such a tall order to get to the good stuff in Final Fantasy XIV. You have to get through some really slow-paced MMO stuff, and a lot of people might say, well, you know, it's not that bad as some other MMOs. Like, you know, this is probably a better version of some of those, like, you know, the things people complain about with MMOs. That's unfortunate, because as somebody who doesn't normally enjoy MMORPGs, and not that I don't enjoy, like, video games or, like, a good RPG, there are things that MMOs do to pad out the length, to make things feel a little bit more full. It's just like there's a lot of tropes that have been, like, kind of weaseled away. And it's funny because Final Fantasy XIV is slowly removing those as it gets farther. There's a lot of streamlined stuff that isn't in the beginning of Final Fantasy XIV, but is in the end, or at least where it is now. So getting through that early stuff is kind of a slog sometimes. They don't want to change much because they don't want to mess with the story. Like one of the dungeons in the beginning of the in Realm Reborn, you can't skip the cutscenes in, meaning the dungeon takes, like, at minimum, like 40 minutes. So if you fail it, I guess, well, you probably wouldn't fail it, but, like, it's a slog. It's like a long dungeon that is intense, but, like, if you ever want to do it again, it's like, how'd they make that mistake? But anyway, point is, by the time it gets good, you have to be invested, or you probably wouldn't have gotten that far. But it's so good. Like, I wish I could just tell people, just play Shadowbringers. Like, if you're not that into MMOs, I wish there was a way for them just to experience Shadowbringers. But it also kind of feels like this nice little reward for being into a game that's so, like, been so slow and, like, to get good, because the developers are amazing on Final Fantasy XIV. The director and the team that makes that game are super, like, communicating with fans, and the fans all love them, and it's also just a really, I'll get that in a second. Point, I was just gonna say, so the developers are great. So it kind of feels like this nice little reward for getting through this game that they made, that they've been, you know, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of, like, figuring stuff out, and they're like, you know, we've been doing a lot of figuring out. We appreciate you getting through all this. Here's the good stuff. Like, here's the really good stuff. So it's kind of nice. It almost feels like you have this, like, secret awesome video game that only the, like, true dedicated can enjoy. And I just want to say that the community of the game, because of how great the, like, developers are, and just how good the developing process is for this game and its fans, the fans love this game. It's so refreshing to play an online video game where nobody's miserable. Like, I play all these, especially cooperative games. For some reason, I always feel like whenever I play online cooperative games, everyone hates the game. They just play it for some reason. Like, I hear more people complain about games like Overwatch and League of Legends and stuff like that than actually loving it, but they play it all day. It's like, it almost feels like a job at some point. But Final Fantasy XIV doesn't want to take, I mean, it does want to take up a good amount of time, especially if you're trying to catch up. But once you catch up, it really isn't about taking up a lot of your time. It doesn't really need to, because it already has your monthly subscription. It just, and like the director has said that himself. He's like, if you run out of stuff to do in Final Fantasy XIV, play something else. Like, do something else, which I so much appreciate and respect the hell out of. It's such a great mantra to follow for a game like this. It's just so respectful and like consumer focused and or just community focused, and it really shows in its game's community and just the game itself. It's just it's a love letter to Final Fantasy. It's a love letter to MMOs, and it's like the best in its class in like both story writing and gameplay in a lot of ways. And not that I have a lot of experience at MMOs, but from what I've been told, it is quite literally leagues better than any other MMO on the market, and there's a reason why it's so popular. And I'm glad I got into it, because it is, like I said, I was not into MMOs, and it took me a long time to get into, but I am into it now. And I'm kind of slow-paced right now. For some reason, Endwalker's, it's interesting, but it's not hooking me like Shadowbringers. And like right now, my life's a little busy, so I'm not like that dedicated to be putting the time into it. I wish I could. But like, you know, even this week, a lot of shit's been going on. So, but we're preparing for that convention, so it's obviously a little busy. But yeah, I'm trying to get back into it, but it's a lot. And I'm slowly getting through. I do like a quest or two a day now, and it's like I feel like I'm moving in through this expansion at like a snail's pace. But it's cool. Maybe I want to cherish it. Maybe I went through Shadowbringers too fast, and I wish I hadn't done it so fast. But yeah, overall, I'm just really happy I played it. It's like, and it really summarizes a lot of all the other games that I played this year. It just feels really good to finally play these games that I have like this gut feeling that I'll like, but I never really get into because of either like time restraints or just something. It's like I'm discovering these games that like are just so cool, and like, I don't know, it felt really good. Sometimes when you play your backlog, it just feels really good. Like, I do recommend that. Try games that you've wanted to try, or games that you might have thought you like, maybe you thought you've tried it, or like maybe you like, oh, do I have an opinion on this game? It's like, maybe that's just me, because I'm like, I just own and play so many video games sometimes, especially back in the day. So it's like I played like so many, like just tried so many RPGs and classic games. I'm like, did I play Final Fantasy VI? I don't think I did. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this rambling video. Let me know what games you played this year that weren't new games. Let me know what games you played that were more just like backlog or retro games, or something that you wish you had played and you finally gave a shot and you loved to death or something. I'm hoping to do that more next year. There's a lot of games that have been on my bucket list, like Chrono Trigger. Even that game's been on my bucket list for way too long, and I think I'd rather spend my time doing that than like obsessively indulging in like, you know, newer games constantly, like just doing it for the sake of it. Like, I really should have looked into like even that Kirby game that I was talking about. I really should have looked into that, because like, you know, I liked it, but kind of a waste of my time in some ways. I think I'd rather have been playing something older that I really enjoyed. And, you know, as we get older, I'm sure as many of you can relate to, you get less and less time to play games. You get less and less time to have these experiences. So some of the more like personal experiences tend to resonate with you more. And there's always a love, and I love like community aspect games. I love being there with, one of the reasons why I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV is I want to make sure I'm like, when the new stuff comes out, I'm like there and I'm able to play it with everybody else. But, you know, sometimes it's good to have a personal experience with an older game that you've been meaning to play, and you don't have to share it with people, you know, and maybe people will be like, well, you finally played that game, but you know what? Screw it. Like, this is your experience with this game. Whether you took you a million years to play it and you feel like you're late to the party, whatever. Like, you know, you're doing it now, and that's what's important. And that's how I'm trying to justify it for myself. But either way, I'm excited for 2023 in terms of like video game stuff. Life will be still a little confusing and weird, because I'm still truthfully getting used to the work from home, self-employed stuff. Especially the legality part of it, all the taxes, and oof, I don't want to think about that right now. This is supposed to be a fun video, but yeah. Let me know. Have a good one. If I don't hear from you by the end of the year, I should have one more video out before the end of the year. Maybe I'll have another video out before that. I'm still working on that retro game video. It's a pain in the ass, but maybe I'll have something else out. I appreciate that people like these discussion videos. I made like a poll, and people primarily wanted me to do one of these, so hopefully it makes good background noise. Hopefully I don't say like as much. By the way, for anyone who's listening, you get the nice little insight and the little embarrassing tidbit of information if you're still listening. My last video, my stupid Pokemon video, I think because my brain was still trying to wrap ideas around, I showed transcript and Control F, and I searched the word like, which I do know I say a lot in my terms of rambling. I don't want people to like think about it because it's embarrassing, because sometimes when you're saying it in mid conversation you don't really notice people are saying it, but I controlled F and I said like 500 times in that 50-minute video, and I was like, no, I'm kidding. It was pretty embarrassing. I feel like I need to get better at what do you call it, talking, I guess. Is that way to say? But anyway, until next time, friends, I hope you enjoy the rest of the year, and you play a bunch of cool video games, and, you know, goodbye.